I have killed people by following orders. We call it comfort measures. We call it letting nature do the cleanup. We chart it like mercy so we can sleep. They call me a criminal nurse because I said that out loud. Because I didn't flinch when the committee wanted a villain with a badge and a paycheck. Fine. Put it on my ID. My hands don't shake when you hate me. I learned to hold my breath while you judge. It's August, and the city is wet and loud and mean. Sirens braid with thunder. The helipad beats like a second heart we can't fix. St. Gabriel smells like bleach and burned coffee. The monitors keep time with things we can't afford to lose. I walk past the room the residents wrote off. A kid. Paper wristband. Bruises on her elbows, like she fell down a staircase of bad choices. 15, maybe. Amaya Rivera. She came in dead, came back once, started sliding again. The algorithm shrugged. The attending clicked comfort. The note reads like a shrug in Latin. Refractory shock. Likely irreversible. Translation, not our miracle. I should move on. Don't get attached, Mara. Don't waste a fight on a body the numbers don't respect. But her capno is wrong. The pattern is wrong. It pokes an old bruise in my head, and I see a page I burned. Gray protocol. The trick everyone pretends isn't real, because it scares them to see the line where rules end and responsibility starts. Conrad Vale taught me that in a call room from hell. I used a cousin of it 2 years ago. I pulled a man back. Then they pulled my name apart in public. If I ask, they'll say no. If I obey, she dies, and we all nod at our screens. If I move, I light my own fuse. Mom's rent, my brother's night classes, everything I've kept alive with my 2 hands. I try the parent number. Bounce back. Ethics is busy talking about organs 3 floors up. Pharmacy locks me out of the override I need. Every door blinks red. The old supply room still eats key cards. It gives on a cough. Top shelf behind dust and junk. There's a kit that shouldn't exist here. Mapped like a dare. Tucked under the elastic is a note with my name in ink I know like my own pulse. Mara. No one else will touch this. Use the bridge, but not the way they taught you. Half dose, side port. Watch for the pause. Trust your left hand. V. Tonight's date, Vale's initials. He's dead. The signature is clean. My stomach drops through the floor like an elevator that forgot its job. Back in the room, lightning blows the city blank for a breath. The monitors stutter. The charge nurse hovers but doesn't enter. The residents laugh down the hall at a joke that makes me want to break something. I slide the kit into my pocket. The syringe cap pops. My left hand is rock steady. If I save her, I'll climb the same scaffold and offer my neck again. If I wait, I'll listen to a kid drown in plastic while the chart calls it peace. The door opens. That voice I packed in a box and buried 2 winters ago lands on my shoulder like a hand. Mara, don't you remember what comes after the pause? I do. No applause, no miracle music. After the pause comes the room filling with people who weren't here. The camera and the smoke detector winking red. The risk manager smiling like a funeral director. The kid gasping awake long enough to make all of us responsible. The switch from nurse to evidence. The pen scratching intent. Next to my name, after the pause comes the cuffs. I'm Mara, 33, and a nurse doing the night shift in a hospital that feels like a steel cage. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, draping everything in harsh shadows and a sterile brightness that never seems to fade. I work on the elderly ward, a place where whispers drift through bruised walls and the smell of antiseptic lingers like a ghost. The beeps of monitors are relentless, a chorus of heartbeats and breaths I've come to know better than the Sioux. The coldness of the place wraps around me like a heavy blanket, one that doesn't warm. Outside those walls, my life is stitched together with thin threads. Mom is barely scraping by in her two-bedroom apartment, the kitchen floors creaking under the weight of worries we never speak of. And then there's Levi, my younger brother, trying to navigate his hopes for the future amid mounting bills. I keep telling him it will get better, but I know better. I strap my scrubs tighter and pull through each shift, sacrificing my own dreams and sometimes my health for what feels like an endless loop of debts and responsibilities. I missed Lily's first dance recital last week. She was so excited, with a sparkly tutu and pigtails, doing twirls in our living room days before. I promised her I'd come, one night shifting gears to the other, but the emergency on the floor wound up needing every hand. I called during intermission, hearing her voice crack with disappointment while I forced a smile thing. The routine here is like clockwork, and there's always an element of chaos. A doctor rushes past me, his fingers scrolling through charts, eyes glazed as if he's lost somewhere between the numbers. The family down the hall argues, soft at first, then louder, harsh words flying across the corridor. "He deserves better," a woman screams, her shockingly red lipstick smudged. I'm used to that sound. It's the inhabitants of this place fighting for their loved ones in a world that feels callous. Even though I know, deep down, there's a very slim chance it will make a difference. In the midst of that cold, clinical atmosphere, I hold on to my humanity. It's how I see these people as more than just names on a chart. Mrs. Jensen with her mismatched socks and a collection of stories that spill out between doses of morphine. Young Mr. Adams, who always asks me about the weather outside the window. They all become more than numbers. They breathe, they ache, they laugh, even at the worst of times, and I want to give them more than the bare minimum. Tonight, it feels like something is brewing, a rippling tension that hangs in the air thicker than the hospital's coldness. The resident in charge looks uneasy, glancing at the screen like it holds secrets. One of the regular night nurses whispers to me about a new policy that just dropped. Something about limiting interventions due to resource shortages. Every indication leads me to believe that a point of no return is nearing. I can practically hear the countdown ticking. As I watch the clock tick toward my shift's end, I can almost feel the moment closing in on me, a sense that something bad is about to happen. It's the stillness before a storm, and I have no choice but to brace myself. There's a patient out there who won't be just another number on a chart, but a life that wants saving, and I'm terrified of what that choice might cost. The moon hung low, casting a dull glow through the grimy windows of St. Gabriel's, as I pulled on my scrubs, ready for another long night shift. Just another night in a place that felt like it was suffocating under its own weight. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and despair, yet I would fight to hold on to my humanity, one patient at a time. But tonight, a storm was brewing just beneath the surface, and the tension was palpable. I made my rounds, greeting familiar faces, but when I reached room 204, everything changed. Old Mr. Thompson, nearing the end of his fight against lung cancer, slumped against the pillows, eyes glazed. The nurse on duty, Jenna, was tapping on her tablet, too distracted to notice that Mr. Thompson's oxygen levels were slipping dangerously low. I moved closer, checking his saturation monitor. It blinked a warning in red. I glanced at Jenna. "He needs more oxygen. His levels are dropping," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced at the screen like it was a mere inconvenience. "He's a DNR, Mara. It's not our call anymore, remember?" Her tone was dismissive, and my stomach twisted. If you've ever been unjustly accused, you know exactly how I felt. Look, no one wants him to suffer, but right now he's gasping for air. We can give him a little boost. I felt the weight of every patient behind my words, how lives hung in the balance. But her expression hardened, and as the words left my mouth, I heard footsteps approaching. A medic, striding in like he was on a mission, a clipboard clutched under his arm. "Miss Rivera, all this fuss over a DNR patient isn't necessary," he said, his clear disdain evident. "Those are the rules. We don't disrupt the process." He turned his back and continued scribbling on his clipboard, dismissing me like I was an errant child. And that was the moment I realized it was only the beginning. As if on cue, Mr. Thompson's daughter stormed in. "Why hasn't anyone done anything? My father can't breathe." Her voice cracked like glass under pressure. I felt a tightening in my chest. Maybe you understand the pain of seeing someone fragile being ignored. I tried to step forward, ready to explain, but the medic shot me a look that silenced me. "Ma'am, your father is on a pathway to comfort. You need to understand his choices." He spoke to her with a condescension that stung, but she was having none of it. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she turned to me, asking with desperate eyes, "Can't you help him, please?" Determined, I made a decision then and there. I walked to the monitor, fingers moving swiftly over the screen, silently documenting everything: their neglect, the dropping levels, the hopelessness hanging in the room. I kept my voice low but firm. "We're here as long as he is. Let's at least give him some dignity in his last moments." But my words fell like stones on hard ground. The medic stepped in front of me, blocking my view of Mr. Thompson. "You need to back off, Mara. This isn't your call." His eyes glinted with authority, and I felt a wave of fury rising in my chest. I observed in silence, holding his gaze as I pushed every emotion deep down. In that moment, I realized my resolve was only strengthened. The air crackled, a palpable tension growing not just between us, but in the very fabric of this hospital. I felt my heart race as I documented everything meticulously in the medical record, determined not to let their actions go unnoticed. I could either break down under this scrutiny or rise above it. "Fine," I finally said, my voice steady, cutting the air like a scalpel. "But if anything happens, I'll hold you accountable." The words hung in the air, like a whisper that didn't want to resonate, but needed to be heard. As I walked away, I was painfully aware that I was pushing against an entire system, fighting for a man whose fight was nearly over. I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to unravel. This wasn't just a battle over a patient. It felt like I was at the center of something far more significant. In that instant, destiny was already decided, and I still didn't know. Everything I'd hoped to maintain, my sanity, my sense of purpose, hung by a thread, and I could already feel the tremors of chaos ripping through the fabric of this steel cage of a hospital. The rumble of something brewing in the distance, something that threatened to shake our already fragile existence to its core. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside my chest. After my confrontation in Mr. Thompson's room, I could feel the air around me vibrating with tension. I dropped into the staff break room, desperate for a moment of solace, my heart racing from the adrenaline of defiance. I thought I could catch my breath, maybe even regain my composure before facing the next wave of patients. But as soon as I stepped inside, I felt it, the weight of judgment pressing down like the hospital's fluorescent lights. "Did you see Mara go toe-to-toe with the medic?" someone whispered, an amused smirk pulling at the corner of their mouth. I tried to ignore the tension creeping down my spine. I knew the risks I'd taken, but in that moment, all I wanted was to be any other nurse, invisible to the waking judgment of my peers. "Don't let it get to you, Mara," Jenna said, but her voice lacked conviction, as if she too was embarrassed by my outburst. "His decisions are set in stone." I felt her eyes weighing me down, as if her gaze could somehow define my worth within these walls. "Right, stones," I replied, sarcasm thick in my tone. "Maybe I should just watch him choke." Before she could respond, the charge nurse strode in, her usual bright demeanor dimmed under the weight of whatever bad news she carried. "Mara," she called, her voice sharp and unyielding, "can you step into the hallway for a moment? My heart began to pound again. What now? I followed her into the corridor, the sterile scent of antiseptic heavy in the air. "There's been a complaint about you," she started, her eyes darting to the floor and then back to me, searching for the right words. "A complaint?" I echoed, my voice rising a notch higher than I intended. "For what? Advocating for Mr. Thompson?" She shifted uncomfortably, and that moment of silence felt like a canyon opening up between us. "You need to understand," she said quietly. "Some patients aren't meant to be saved. We do what we can, but I should just watch them suffer?" I shot back, the anger igniting just beneath my skin. "How can you say that? Listen, we all know it's tough on the floor," she continued, her voice low, almost pleading. "But your passion, it's going to get you in trouble. We can't afford to make waves." I felt the heat rising to my cheeks, caught between the anger of my conscience and the helplessness of the role I was confined to. But before I could respond, another voice broke through the density of the tension. "Mara!" It was Dr. Zane, the attending physician, his expression a mask of disapproval. My heart sank. He commanded the kind of respect that forced even the boldest of nurses to take a step back. "Can you come to the break room, please? We need to have a word." My stomach twisted into knots as I followed him back. There, I walked into a sea of faces, the entire nursing staff along with the medic from earlier, all of them waiting. I felt small, as if I was the only one standing at an edge about to be pushed off. "Let's have a little chat about your behavior," Dr. Zane said, crossing his arms while the others leaned in, judgment dripping from their expressions. "We need to function like a team, and your outburst isn't helping." Suddenly, heat swept over me as if I was being doused in ice water. Their eyes looked at me, not as a fellow nurse, but as an outcast, a troublemaker disrupting the peaceful semblance of the ward. "I was just trying to advocate for a patient," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Advocate? You mean undermine?" he shot back. "And in front of the family? Do you have any idea how that looks?" A knot formed in my throat, and I could feel the blood rushing to my face. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but I had no words left. How do I explain that sometimes the numbers didn't paint the whole picture? In that moment, humiliation wrapped around me like a thick fog, isolating me further from the people I worked alongside each day. I had hoped for understanding, but instead, I was drowning in scrutiny. "It's time you understood the bigger picture," he continued, tossing my integrity into question. "You need to think about your career here, Mara." I stood there, feeling like a crumpled medical record, unwanted and neglected. "I'm not here for titles or badges. I'm here for the people who breathe beneath the cold sheets of this hospital. You're all okay with just letting him suffer?" I finally found some courage, the outrage creeping back in. But my words only sank like stones in a still pond, ignored by the tide of their dismissals. The room seemed to close in, laughter from the other nurses echoing around me, feeling as though they were all complicit in a system that didn't value compassion. My heart hammered against my ribcage, frantic echoes of my own unworthiness reverberating off the sterile white walls. And then I saw it, glinting in the corner of my eye, the flick of a recording device, the way the cameras caught our heated exchange, the whispers I had unwittingly ignited. Now they had evidence, and I was the one who looked reckless in the eyes of the institution. I felt the world shift beneath me, propelling me deeper into the isolation of my choice. But suddenly, they hushed. A voice that silenced the tension erupted from behind me. "What's happening here? Why is Mara being questioned for doing her job?" I turned, my heart leaping at the sound. There stood Marissa, the senior nurse revered for her experience and fierce loyalty to patients. My chest tightened, hope flickering dimly within. She's just trying to care for the patients we've all taken an oath to protect. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but with it came another wave of dread. Would her words be enough to shield me from the fallout? Would they offer a reprieve from the turbulence that had suddenly become my life? And that's when I heard a voice that would change everything. Mara was right. We need to reassess how we approach our patients altogether. Dr. Zane turned, fury boiling in his eyes. This wasn't over. Nothing was resolved, and I had no idea how far this would go. Would I be able to endure it? I held my breath, the tension coiling tighter. Dr. Zane paced as he pointed a finger at me. Each word escaping his mouth felt like a punch. You think you know better than your colleagues? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're trying to create chaos. The words hung heavy in the air, clutching at my lungs, but I fought for breath. Around me, my colleagues stood enlisted as witnesses to my public undoing, arms crossed, staring at me like I was the main act in some dreadful tragedy. I could feel the heat creeping up my neck, the tension coiling like a snake ready to strike. Chaos? I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Mr. Thompson is gasping, and you think ignoring that will somehow maintain order? The charge nurse tried to catch my eye, but I wouldn't look at her. I already knew what her silence meant, that I was alone in this moment. Enough. Dr. Zane boomed, stepping closer. The echo in the metallic corridor felt like a warning, but I could feel something boiling beneath the surface. This isn't about one patient. This is about the integrity of the entire nursing unit. No, this is about one human being, and you're treating him like a statistic, I countered, my voice shaking as I spoke. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Suddenly, Jenna pulled away her chair, the scrape echoing like thunder. Mara, don't. Her tone dripped with a mix of pity and disdain. She was urging me to surrender, to back down from this fight, while everyone watched. Her eyes darted across the room, desperate to signal that this wasn't about me. But it was. I hated how the venom in Dr. Zane's eyes danced like fire as he faced me. You need to pay attention and learn where your responsibilities end. I tightened my grip on the counter, nails digging into the cold, textured surface. My fingertips felt numb as I processed that steady wave of humiliation, but I wasn't about to let him pull me under. The audience of my colleagues was silent, and their stares burned heavy. I could almost hear what they were thinking in the pauses. What a troublemaker Mara had become. How she put herself before the teen. Even how this might all end for me. They were ready to watch me stumble. You'll regret this, he said, the words like a dark promise, as he stepped closer. If you stoop to inciting unnecessary drama in front of the family, the penalty could be severe. A suspension, a lawsuit. Do you think they will stand by you? Those statements echoed louder than any siren outside. The possibility of losing my position, my income, my sole means of supporting my family. Suddenly, everything constricted, and I wrestled to reclaim my breath. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the guards encircling me, waiting for the perfect moment to push me over. But then I heard the muffled voice of Mr. Thompson's daughter outside the room. "Why won't anyone do anything?" she cried, eyes wide and pleading. It cut through the haze of judgment filling the air, bringing clarity amid the chaos. I could feel the warmth of my own conviction creeping back. The weight of her sorrow was a reminder of what was truly at stake. "Minimizing that patient's struggle is not an option," I managed to say, my voice growing steadier, laced with urgency. "You're turning your back on the roots of our profession. We're here to help, not to watch people suffer in silence." I knew I risked it all, pushing against them when everyone stood by quietly. But in that moment, I felt my indignation rise, that desperate need to say something, while they pointed fingers, while they would not see me for anything but the troublemaker. Did they not understand how easily lives could be shoved beneath the rug of bureaucracy, forgotten in sterile rooms? Dr. Zane's jaw clenched. He advanced with a finger jabbing dangerously close to my chest. "You're overstepping your bounds, Mara. You make a single misstep, and you'll be finished here." The heat of humiliation burned deeper as I took small steps backward, trying to breathe, trying to regain my placement in this twisted jungle where every voice sought to overpower mine. It felt like a skewed spotlight pinned on me, an unnatural pressure from all sides. I could hear a pin drop, my colleagues waiting for the next word to emerge from the chaos. "I won't let you use your authority to belittle another person's suffering," I shouted, my voice rising more than I intended. The pit in my stomach swirled with fear, but so did anger. And as much as wearing it felt like a burden, it did bring clarity. If you fire me or suspend me, it won't change the faces of those being forgotten. You think that's power? I was gaining momentum, but could feel it fading fast. The gaze of my peers felt cold, and I had this momentary conviction that I didn't belong here, that I was merely fighting shadows, ghosts of what I wanted this profession to be. In that instant of despair, I almost gave in, almost let the burden of it all crush me beneath their accusing looks. But just as I feared I had lost the battle, I caught sight of Marissa stepping forward, her presence her sharp gaze settled on Dr. Zane, and for a heartbeat, I walked the edge, heart racing on the brink of faltering. But there was a glint of hope igniting in her eyes. "Dr. Zane, you're wrong. The heart of this profession lies in compassion, and we've lost our way." The murmur in the room shifted slightly, lifting the corners of my spirit when I thought I might be lost. I held my breath, waiting to see which way the tide would turn, not sure what would happen next. But my inner voice whispered that perhaps this wouldn't end in silence after all. The silence in the break room was suffocating, my heart pounding in rhythm with the tension. Marissa's unexpected defense had momentarily shifted the storm of accusations away from me, but I could still feel the eyes of my colleagues digging into my back like knives. Dr. Zane's face was a mask of thunderclouds, and the air was thick with unspoken words. "Let's be clear," he said, glaring at me, his voice low and menacing. "This isn't over, Mara." I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of fear that coated my throat. I was painfully aware that I had put myself in a precarious position. Standing my ground could mean my career was on the line, but giving in felt like a betrayal to everyone who put their trust in me. I left that room with the weight of their disdain clinging to me, the threat of suspension hovering like a shadow. I moved through the dim corridors of the hospital, searching for clarity. My mind swam with thoughts of Mr. Thompson, his gasping breaths echoing in my memory. How could I abandon someone in need because of red tape? No one deserved to suffocate quietly while we concerned ourselves with protocol. As I made my way back to the nursing station, the tension hadn't faded. It clawed at my insides like an angry beast, restless and hungry. I punched in the numbers on my login screen, but my thoughts drifted to the countless others who seemed to float in the ether of our neglect. Just as I was starting to feel a familiar sense of despair creep in, I caught sight of something, a small glimmer in the corner of my eye. It was on my desk, a folded piece of paper. My heart skipped. I hadn't left anything there. Curious, I picked it up, and my mind raced through my interactions of the day. It wasn't mine, at least not directly. I opened it slowly, suddenly feeling exposed, as if someone had peeled back layers of my existence without my consent. The handwriting was familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. It was frantic, hurried. "Meet me. Cash." My breath hitched. Cash? The word sent a shiver down my spine. In that part of the hospital, there were whispers of a hidden supply room for things beyond just medical supplies. A place where ethical lines got blurred, where dreams were sometimes reassembled just to shatter them again. I had heard the stories. Every nurse did. What had been lost, forgotten, or hidden there could change everything. Moving through the sterile halls felt different now. As if the air was charged with electricity, a sense of urgency propelling me forward. I knew I had to get to the cache, but I also felt a prickling sense of dread. What if Dr. Zane's undercurrents of authority had seeped into the very walls, manifesting in an unexpected danger? I slipped into the shadows, every quiet step an echo of my fears. I rounded the corner toward the old supply room, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. The door was visibly weathered, with a lock rusted over with neglect. I'd heard many tales. Some said things lay within that could destroy careers, lives. Pushing the door, I discovered the room swallowed in darkness, filled with dust. My senses heightened, and I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation guiding me. That's when my flashlight beam caught something, a metal box, half muffled in a pile of ancient bandages. I knelt to drag it out, a fire igniting within me. I felt its weight, and knew it had secrets. The latch clicked awkwardly as I pried it open, the clang of metal echoing eerily in the silence. Inside lay a stash, syringes, vials labeled illegibly, and among them, a set of worn documents. Taking a breath, I unfolded the nearest paper, nearly toppling back as the names jumped out at me. They were all here, patients I had known, their cases merged with brave testaments of challenged ethics. But as I scanned closer, my heart hammered in confusion. Alongside these records was a name I never expected to see. Conrad Vale, I whispered, my pulse quickening. Hadn't I seen his name on the file of a patient just last week? Hadn't he been the one whose death had haunted me, a gust of guilt blowing through my conscience? But alongside it was another, my name, scrawled nearly indecipherably. I felt the world tilt and tilt hard. My instincts screamed at me. This wasn't a mix-up. There were notes about decisions made with desperation, like mine in the heat of the moment. Use the bridge. Trust your left hand? I murmured, remembering my earlier thoughts and calculations. But there was more than that. Scribbled phrases began to form a pattern, pieces of an unsettling puzzle I hadn't yet realized existed. It seemed like a plan, a blueprint reflecting my own struggles, all in a context so messy that it felt prepared for a courtroom instead of a ward. The trap snapped. Someone knew about the Gray Protocol. They knew I had strayed into a landscape littered with dilemmas. Suddenly the door creaked. I froze, the thick air trapping my breath in my throat, eyes darting towards the sound. My heart raced as a figure emerged from the shadows, silhouetted against the pale light of the corridor. "Mara," came a voice I recognized, a voice that had both inspired and haunted me. It was Jenna. Her expression wavered between concern and realization, and for once I felt a surge of something that felt like hope ripple through me. "You shouldn't be here," she urged, stepping further into the room. "But this—" I glanced back at the cache, heart racing with half-formed thoughts scrambling for form. "It's here. It's all here, Jenna. The hidden stuff, the decisions we've been trying to avoid. We could—" "Hush!" she hissed, glancing nervously around. "They'll find out." And just like that, I felt the ground tremble beneath the weight of an unknown revelation. Maybe I hadn't only put myself in danger. Maybe I had stumbled onto something bigger than just my fight against injustice. In that moment, the hope I felt flickered. I realized the tangled web wasn't merely about me. It was interconnected with forces that could swing the very foundation of this institution. And deeper still, someone knew the truth. A relief mixed with fear flooded me as I stood there staring into the abyss of uncertainty. "Mara, please," Jenna started, but I could hardly hear her. In my mind, I could only think of one thing. In that moment, I realized someone knew the truth and had just let it slip. The panic surged in my veins like ice, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of the scene unfolding before me. Jenna stood there, blocking the door to the old supply room, a silhouette cloaked in fear and determination. I could feel the weight of the documents in my hands. Everything I had discovered pressing down on me like a heavy shroud, but all I could focus. I shouldn't have brought you here. We can't expose this. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. My fingers brushed against the crinkled papers. This is exactly what we need, Jenna. We can't let them continue this way. Not with people suffering. Not like Mr. Thompson, I said, my voice choking on the urgency swirling around us. Please, she begged, stepping forward. You're not seeing the big picture. You don't understand the repercussions. Dr. Zane isn't just a physician. He's a powerful ally. If you push this, you might end up worse than suspended. You could lose everything. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of pity for her, seeing her fear. But pity wouldn't save Mr. Thompson, nor would it protect any of us trapped in this cycle of negligence. I shook my head, determination flooding in to quench my momentary vulnerability. You'd rather stand by and let patients slip through the cracks? This isn't just power struggles, it's people's lives. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy like mercury. I could feel the silence push back from every corner of the room, every shadow leaning closer as if it were listening intently. Then, as if summoned by our tension, the door creaked open further, and in stepped Dr. Zane himself, followed by a couple of the nurses. My stomach rolled. I instantly felt like a cornered animal, but before I could move, his steely gaze bored into me like a sharp instrument. So this is where you've been hiding, Mara. He looked at Jenna, irritation curling his lip. Are you really conspiring in here? Suddenly the room felt even smaller. I could hear my breath, the echo of my heartbeat. Jenna's eyes shifted between us, panic rippling across her features. Jenna, I started, but Dr. Zane's dismissive glare cut me off like a knife. Enough. What's this? He hissed, taking a step closer. His voice was a low growl. You don't think I wouldn't find out? You really believe you can challenge me? Challenge the very protocols holding the hospital together? I'm not challenging you. I'm fighting for what's right. I shot back, my pulse thrumming wildly in my ears. There's a reason we have protocols. If everyone started acting on their own emotions, there'd be chaos, he snarled. And you, Mara, are on the brink of that chaos. The moment hung there, tense and ready to snap. His words struck like a thunderclap, bouncing off walls that seemed to close in. You don't get to play the martyr while pretending you're the hero, he barked, his face twisting in anger. Then, something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, holding the documents high, shaking with both anger and adrenaline. Is this what you call protocol? Patient neglect? Their names, their journeys? They're right here. Dr. Zane's eyes narrowed, but I could see something shift behind his steely facade, a flicker of uncertainty, maybe even fear. My heartbeat echoed in the solitary silence, and it was clear I had struck a nerve. Just then, more nurses piled into the room, drawn by the commotion, eyes widening at the sight. Their expressions morphed from confusion to caution. I felt tethered to their collective gasp, and electricity surging through me, the blood rushing to my cheeks. What's going on? One of them asked, glancing nervously between us. Just a disagreement, Dr. Zane growled. No one moved. They stood, caught between loyalty to him and the humanity we all shared. Jenna whispered harshly, "Stop! You're making this worse." I hesitated, glancing back at her desperate eyes, the pleading in them. The urge to give in hit like a ton of bricks, an ounce of remorse gripping my heart. Maybe I could walk away. Maybe I didn't have to be the one who shone a light in this darkness. But then I pictured Mr. Thompson gasping for air, his face contorted in helplessness, and the burgeoning resolve melted away any last shred of doubt. I've had enough, I said firmly, stepping toward the nurses, my voice rising. This isn't about Dr. Zane or protocols. It's about saving lives. We're supposed to care, to fight, not turn our backs. We can't let the bureaucracy suffocate our compassion. The murmuring from the gathered nurses increased as they exchanged looks. I could see them start to shift, their doubts morphing into something more dangerous: anger. I felt the room tremble, this collective weight turning now, like a massive wave edging toward the shore. "You'll see," I shouted, determination pulsing through me stronger than fear. "You can stand by him, and for what? To be quiet while the rest of us drown in red tape. This is your chance to take a stand." Then it happened. A nurse stepped forward. I recognized her, someone I had worked alongside for years. "I stand with Mara," she declared, her voice breaking the tension like a sledgehammer, sparking a reaction. Others echoed her sentiment, yet even in their affirmations, I could see the fear still lurking at the edges of their resolve. Their hesitance hung heavily like a veil between loyalty to the establishment and loyalty to their own compassion. Dr. Zane's expression shifted. Fury flickered across his face, and he tried to regain control. "You think you can just rally them?" he barked. "You think I'd let you ruin everything I've built?" Everything went quiet. His desperate attempt to hold on, to dissuade me, hung in the air, and for a moment, so did I. I felt the almost pity for him, a glimmer of understanding. He too was a product of this place, molded by its shadows. But just as quickly, it vanished, replaced by the need for justice. I steadied myself and said, "You've built a house of cards, Dr. Zane. One gust, and it all comes tumbling down." I looked around, meeting each concerned gaze. "Let's tear it down together," I urged. "Let's expose the truth." And just like that, an irreversible decision settled in my heart. A nurse stepped forward, then another, and another, each person finding their voice amid the fray. They pulled away the curtain veiling the truth. "Enough of this," I said, holding the documents high. "I'm not going to stand by while lives are placed at the altar of convenience." In one powerful movement, I dropped the papers onto the floor at Dr. Zane's feet, the sound reverberating through the room like a gunshot. The silence afterward was deafening, the truth sitting bare before us in ink and scrawls. I locked eyes with Dr. Zane, fury simmering beneath my fearlessness, and I took a breath, feeling liberating. Today, we choose humanity over protocol. We choose the living over the dead. He stood frozen, realization crashing over him. I saw a chink in his armor, a flicker of panic in the monotony of his discipline. I demolished his control, and I savored that rush. As I surveyed the room filled with humbled, shining faces, I felt a spark of hope flicker to life in the darkness. My heart pounded wildly, a rhythmic drumbeat of justice echoing back against the sterile walls. Walking into the unknown wasn't easy, but I felt something shift, the weight of a collective conscience rising, ready to warm a frigid world. And as for Dr. Zane, a man who once towered over us like a shadow, he stood on unsteady ground, realizing I wasn't just another nurse anymore. I was the light breaking through. I couldn't help but whisper to myself, hoping it reverberated in the silence. We are more than silent witnesses now. It's been a few months since that night in the break room at St. Gabriel's. I remember the adrenaline, the tension that crackled in the air, and the way I felt like everything was shifting beneath my feet. I put my job on the line that day, and for a moment it felt like the ground might swallow me whole. But instead of withering away, a spark ignited in my chest, and with it came a wave of courageous change. In the weeks that followed, my colleagues stepped forward with me. Together, we banded into a fierce group of advocates for patient care. The hospital wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But every morning now, we gather together, a new sense of purpose woven into the very fabric of our team. We created a space for honest conversations, where advocating for our patients isn't just allowed, it's expected. Seeing fellow nurses and doctors vocalize their concerns has transformed not only our ward, but rippled through the entire hospital. We genuinely discuss cases, pushing for the best solutions, nurturing compassion along with medical knowledge. Through all this, I've become more than just a nurse. I'm a voice for the voiceless, not just for the patients who look to us for guidance, but also for my coworkers struggling to navigate the chaos. I still work the night shifts, the hum of the fluorescent lights still draping everything in sterile shadows. But those shadows don't feel as heavy anymore. Every time I walk through those doors, I feel a pride swelling in my chest, realizing I'm part of something bigger than myself, a movement towards dignity in healthcare. And he still oversees us with a watchful eye, but I can see how the scenarios have shifted. His authority feels slightly less oppressive now, like a statue that no longer casts a shadow over everything. He engages in discussions during morning rounds, seeking input instead of shutting it down. I find myself wearing this strange badge of honor, knowing we somehow changed him just as much as the environment around us. Instead of holding tight to his old ways, he seems to grasp that compassion isn't a hindrance to his authority, it's a strength. Life outside of the hospital is evolving too. I've taken more steps to connect with my family. I made it to Lily's dance recital last week, and the way her face lit up brought tears to my eyes. I'm still juggling responsibilities, with Mom needing support and Levi continuing his education. But there's this lightness to my heart now, a sense of grounding I didn't have before. Every challenge feels a little more manageable, and I've learned too, what felt like a reckless stand has shaped a depth of purpose I never imagined was alive within me. I look at St. Gabriel's now, a place once clouded with despair, and I see seeds of hope blossoming. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long while, I'm not afraid to find out. Instead, I'm here awake and ready, hands steady, soul aligned, eager to embrace whatever comes next. As the sun dipped low, casting warm hues through the hospital windows, I found myself reflecting on everything that had changed since that pivotal day in the break room. This night felt different. It wasn't just another shift. I stood at a crossroads, ready to solidify not only my place in the nursing staff, but also the values we had fought for over the past few months. Walking onto the ward, the hum of conversations mingled with the rhythmic beeping of monitors, and I felt the energy shift. The nurses, my comrades in this movement, rallied together more than ever. Each day felt. Marissa approached me, her face glowing with excitement. "We did it, Mara," she said, her eyes shining. "The hospital administration finally approved the new patient advocacy training program. It's going live next month." A swell of pride surged through me. We had pushed for this initiative, rallying support from so many around the hospital. "That's incredible. It's a testament to what we've built together," I replied, my voice thick with emotion, my heart racing at the thought of all those late-night discussions and brainstorming sessions. As the night progressed, the camaraderie in the air wrapped around us like a warm blanket. We were becoming a family, a group of nurses and doctors who stood not just for protocol, but for compassion. I watched as Dr. Mask, Zane, once a symbol of rigid authority, worked alongside the team during rounds, genuinely engaging with the staff and patients alike. Perhaps I hadn't just shifted the culture, maybe I'd nudged him toward a better version of himself too. But my heartstrings tugged at the memory of Mr. Thompson. I made my way to his room, aware that his steadfast courage had spurred us forward. As I entered, I found him surrounded by photos of family and friends, a small smile breaking through his weary face. "Hey there, Mr. Thompson," I greeted, stepping in quietly. "How are we feeling today?" "Better, actually," he replied, voice raspy but cheerful. "I hear you stirred up a bit of a revolution around here, quite the talk of St. Gabriel's." I chuckled, grateful for the shard of humor that pierced the shadows of our work. Talking to him brought my mission full circle. I wanted to fight for him, and for everyone like him, who had felt unheard and unseen. "Just doing what we can," I said, feeling the words resonate deeply. As my shift came to an end, I found myself gathering my belongings, glancing back at the ward one last time. This wasn't just a place of work anymore. It was home, filled with victories large and small. Sure, we were still navigating hurdles, but we faced them together now, side by side. Exiting the building, I took a deep breath of the cool night air. Above, the stars sparkled in a vast open sky, and I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Change had taken root in this place, and I was a part of it. But as I turned to leave, a sense of urgency sparked within me, momentum that needed to continue. My heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead, the stories waiting to be told, the battles yet to fight. This was just the beginning. So I encourage you to take a stand for what you believe in, whatever shape that may take in your life. Be the catalyst for change, just as we all can be. And as you reflect on your journey, remember, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending, and don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how this story concludes. Together, let's keep the conversation going. The journey isn't over yet.